My name is Paula Zapon, and I'm from.
Hi.
Because it was started.
My name is Multi Johnson, I'm from Netherlands.
My name is Jerry from New York.
My name is Rihanna. I'm from Senegal.
My name is Fatmata Sirello from Guinea.
Nice to meet you. Anyone else? Okay, cool. Well, thank you everyone, and that gave us just enough time to welcome Manushi. Yeah, if you want to just introduce yourself. We just did introductions really
well, apologies for being late. I went to 15th and Over Street, which is Times Square, and then I ran here. Anyways, I'm Manushi. I get several familiar faces. Very nice to see you all. With Tony, I'm a National Climate Fellow at Change the Chamber. We do a bunch of cool stuff, and we can share that with you later. And we've shared that with you over these days. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's
awesome. We'll give you a second to breathe
just
too.
to collect.
So yeah, I guess we can go to the next slide. We want to talk a little bit about our work and what we do, and so we're going to share a little bit about this project, about our organization, and then we really want to open it up and do an interactive activity. And so we're going to keep this kind of short here. We've got this environmental Changemakers certificate training that we've been helping to develop with a group of young adults and more experienced changemakers. It's been sort of an intergenerational collaboration. It is primarily U.S. context, right? So that's really important to keep in mind. What we did when we were developing this training is we really wanted to create a set of activities, of videos, of articles to help people feel more confident in the work they're doing as change makers, right? And so a lot of these ideas within this training, they don't just apply to the environmental movement, they can be used in different ways. So that's something we talk about a lot. And it was made for educators and students. It's primarily online, it's asynchronous, it's free of charge, really focused on skill development and then pushing people to higher level action. And so we really were thinking about this when we were designing this training, is who we wanted to design this for and for what purpose, right? And so like a little short story. So like when I started in the environmental movement, I felt like I didn't have a place in the movement. Like I felt like I had to be an expert on everything in order to do anything. And that's not true. And so we incorporated that into the training, that this could be a good first step for someone who wants to take higher level action. And so for instance, when you finish the training, you get a certificate upon completion, but you also get an invitation to apply to be a climate fellow with Change the Chamber, to potentially go on and lead a project like Manushi and I, are leading, right? You want to talk a little bit about Change the Chamber?
Absolutely. This training and these type of activities are grounded. During one of the sessions, somebody raised this point that as youth, you're expected to know everything, to know, educate yourself before speaking. And so this is where this training comes from. It is for everybody who is passionate about advocating for environmental change, but at the same time wants to know how to begin, what kind of work that can be done, and how can you connect with the larger community of people who are passionate about this cause. For instance, like Tony mentioned, being a National Climate Fellow opens you to Change the Chamber community, which is a collective of more than 100 plus student groups. And so we get together and do more informed advocacy. So instance, we meet with congressmen. And because we're a nonpartisan movement, we also meet with Republican and Democrat-oriented, affiliated congressmen. And so in doing so, it's been such an sort of enlightening activity, because I also this time I studied what other climate agendas Republicans have. What is the climate oriented manifesto they have, and how can I speak to them? Because we speak in our communities in small rooms. It's more like preaching to the choir. But this also gave me an opportunity to branch out of my comfort zone and talk to people who, despite all of the havoc climate change has created, are saying that climate change is a conspiracy theory, essentially.
And so, we, as the voice of youth, we work with a lot of different people, right? And we recognize that change can come from a lot of different places within society, right? And so, like, in addition to meeting with people in Congress, we also meet with Fortune 500 companies to try to get them to be more sustainable. So a lot of our work is around trying to change the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the biggest fossil fuel lobbying organizations and, you know, supporting the interests of the fossil fuel industry. And so we try to push them to be more sustainable. And so we meet with member corporations and legislators as well. And so that's part of what Change a Chamber does. And it's kind of like what people work towards as they take this training. And so
this is like 101, like your entry into this community and more informed and targeted action. So instead of like, and it's also a chance for me, this was also a chance to look beyond the doom and gloom of whatever climate change and the news that surrounding it comes up, right? So this was for me like direct all of that frustration and all of that passion into something more productive that might not, that creates change. It might be small, it might be big, but it's change in a positive direction.
Yeah, and like, so that picture on the slide right there is of one of the modules on the emotional components of being a change maker and the difficulty that many of us face in terms of how we navigate some of these. And for folks who are kind of looking in, we're going to share the slides afterwards too, so you can always look at these afterwards. But yeah, it's a training to develop a set of skills, anything on, you know, the role of storytelling when it comes to this movement and building relationships with people, to building coalitions for change. We have a whole module on systemic change and talking about certain kinds of like leverage points within systems to take higher level action. And so it covers a lot of content, and we have these different activities that are really designed to go alongside some of the articles and some of the videos, and to really get people thinking about who they are and the work that they do and where they want to go. And so we wanted to do one of those activities with you all here. But first, we wanted to share actually one of our change makers who submitted their assignment. We asked them if it was okay sharing this with different audiences. We actually gave a similar presentation like this in Colorado recently for a disaster preparedness and response research group. And so I don't know if you're able to pull up the video. So this is Stephanie.
My name is Stephanie Mungia, and I've worn a lot of different hats in my environmental change maker journey. But today I want to tell you about the very first one I wore. Now, I don't tend to keep around any baby hats, so I can't show you literally my first hat, but I'm going to tell you a story about my home, the place where I first grew up wearing that in Puerto Rico.
Okay, it looks like we're having
So when I was little,
a little technical difficulty.
my
I think we could probably pause it. That should be okay. But
met when they were both studying at the University of Puerto Rico, and my dad was studying biology. And at the time, that meant he was getting to do a lot of field work in a place really special to me called El Yunque National Forest. And so as a baby, my parents would strap me into a little baby sling, and they'd take me on one of the probably most famous hikes in El Yunque, a hike that takes you to a famous waterfall called La Mina. And it's a long and arduous hike through a very sticky, steamy, tropical rainforest. And when you get to the end, it's this beautiful waterfall, just a huge drop. I still look at it and think it's enormous, even as a grown-up. And the water is cold. It is fresh mountain water, crystal clear, like you wouldn't believe. I was really lucky that my parents gave me a lot more outdoor experiences like that as a child, even after we left Puerto Rico and moved to Florida. I grew up in the outdoors, camping almost every weekend, and I found myself falling in love with wildlife through every one of those experiences. Unfortunately, something happens when you fall in love with something. You also notice when something's not right. So that meant that I also had to confront the reality of the harm that we were doing to these places that I love so much. at a really early age. And I realized that as communities, we were losing our connection to nature. For me, that happened almost at the same age as I was losing my connection to my Latina identity. I was living in a place that was so foreign, where there was nobody else from the islands around me, and I was trying to assimilate. And thankfully, in some ways, that assimilation helped me reach a lot of people with my message of concern for the environment. But it was kind of flat. I was so focused on just raising awareness that I kept feeling stuck and like I wasn't actually making that big of a difference. As I went to college, I started to transition that focus a little bit. I started realizing that the policies that we have in place aren't really protecting our natural spaces as they should be. I also started to learn about topics like environmental justice, and I learned more about climate change. And these things all sound really interesting when they're theoretical, but then something really big happened to Puerto Rico. When I was in my master's program, living in California, the furthest away I've ever lived from the Caribbean, Hurricane Maria struck. It was the week before my birthday, and I didn't get to hear from anybody for a whole week because there was no connection. And there was something so visceral about that experience that it finally crystallized how all of these things I had been learning about, been worrying about, been trying to teach about were related. The wildlife, the place that I loved, El Yunque, they were stripped. There were no leaves anywhere in that lush tropical rainforest left. Everything that lived there, it seemed like there was no hope for them. Because a giant hurricane on a scale we had never seen before, driven by the forces of climate change that are increasing hurricane frequency, intensity, and severity throughout the Caribbean, had hit my home. And then through the process of recovery, I started to learn what environmental justice, or injustice more accurately, really looks like. It was clear in those early days that no one was coming to save us. Nobody was going to go to that island and help my family and the people that I love so much. The government turned its back. And because we relied on outdated fossil fuel-based infrastructure that had to be shipped in, it was really hard to reestablish life as normal. And on the island, we still see the impacts of Hurricane Maria. But something beautiful came out of it too. Once people realized nobody was coming to save them, they started to save themselves. There was this beautiful wave of community care and mutual aid that came out of it, and we saw truly the best of ourselves and in each other. And it showed me one really important lesson about natural disasters. Yes, they show us how fragile things are, but they can also show us how incredibly resilient they are. And I think in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, of seeing the devastation, seeing how people lifted themselves up out of that terrible situation, it really inspired me to think differently about these issues we were facing. It wasn't just about raising awareness about the biodiversity crises or the climate crisis. It wasn't about fixing policies to address environmental injustices. It was about transforming entire systems and how we think about them. Transforming the way we think about how we help ourselves and each other and our communities. Showing up in a really deep and meaningful and impactful way that maybe we haven't really done before. And it sort of made me realize that at the end of the day, systems weren't going to save our planet. We were, as a collective coming together. Thankfully, I got to go back to El Yunque after Hurricane Maria. not immediately after. So I never had to see in person devastation. But a few years after, when all of the lush greenness had started to return. And it's true that it's not exactly the same. And it's true that I don't hear as many coquillas as I would have heard in those early trips. But it's still there. It's still standing. And while I don't get to La Mina on, a baby sling, and I have to walk there and make that arduous trek myself, I actually feel like that waterfall is so much more meaningful to me now because I have to fight so hard to get to it. And because we came so close to losing it. I hope one day this planet will feel so much sweeter to all of us.
I think there was like 2 more words at the end, so go check it out afterwards. It's saved in there. But I wanted to share Stephanie's story because it was part of an activity where we have folks think about their journey as a change maker, and we have them think about their underlying motivations for coming to do this work. And so we wanted to do something kind of similar here, right? So we want to create some space to hear from you all. And with the structured activity, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes until we're done here, talking with one another. But first, so the way this activity works, I'm going to explain it. So I want you all to just kind of we've covered a lot of ground over the past few days. We've talked about a lot of really important issues. We covered, there's so many different things with the SDGs that we're very concerned and passionate about. And I think there's a reason as to why each and every one of us is here in this room. And I want you to think about your own motivation for doing this work, okay? So just for a moment, think about why. Why are you doing this work? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it some kind of value? Think about that for a moment, okay? And then,
I'm ready.
Okay, you're ready, okay. And then what I want you all to do is to pull out your phones or your computers, or if you don't have one of those things, I'll explain that too, but find a photo or something that represents that motivation. Find a photo of a person, that place, and if there's any questions, please let me know. And we'll just give it a couple minutes, okay? And let folks find.
Can I start before the other things?
We're just gonna give it a minute. We're gonna do something.
So just take time.
Okay. Yeah, just 1 second, okay? Yeah.
So that everyone can speak up.
Yeah. So what we were gonna do is we were gonna do it with partners first, and then we were gonna share in a larger group. And so, yeah, if you're ready to go for it, okay? And then as folks find their other photos too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free to share.
You give me 1 minute?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
It's too short.
Yeah.
2, please.
Okay, go.
Okay. 3 and 4 seconds because I'm 34. Can I? Okay. Okay. So.
Do you want to come up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You want it? I'll give it.
Yeah, I'm Ophelia. I'm from Armenia. This is the picture that represents my motivation. Yeah, you
Can you
see?
explain for folks a little bit?
Yeah. It's in the forest, National Forest of Armenia. The area is called Dilijan. Yeah, I love this place for its climate change hasn't entered here yet. That's why. It has mild weather, mild summers, mild winters, mild autumns. And it's kind of compared as not me. Whoever comes there, it's a little Switzerland. So if you come to Armenia, visit Dilijan first. Yeah, and when I go there, I feel super motivated because I am in my own plate. I feel the fresh air, the animals, the land, the forest, the trees, the butterflies, anything, the biodiversity. And yeah, this motivates me and I come fresh with new ideas and with new dealings each time. And yeah, what about my motivates you? Yeah, it motivates me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I have four ideas.
Okay.
Time is up.
For ideas, I have more
Okay.
than 4 ideas. How to tackle climate change in Armenia. Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so what we're gonna do, thank you so much for sharing. And so what we're gonna, you flipped it on us. We were gonna do, share the larger group after, but we want folks to actually turn to their neighbor, okay? And so share your photo with your neighbor, and talk a little bit about your motivation. And wait, everyone, just really quickly, really important, when your neighbor is sharing with you, listen to them. Okay, don't think about what you're going to say next. Listen to them. Yeah, you can share with them, but feel free, okay?
Sorry. Just to add, right? Make this more mindful. Like when you're looking, it can be anything. Something that will tell you your story. Practice listening in this, right? As much as you're passionate about the cause, your neighbor also is. So also practice listening, right? Take 2 minutes to yourself, 1 minute to yourself, and then share. Listen. Try and absorb what your neighbor is saying.
Thank you. Cool. And then for folks at home, if you can hear me still, you're more than welcome to add your motivation into the chat. We'd love to hear from you as well. And so you can just answer that question. Why am I motivated to do this work? We'd love to hear from you as well. And so please feel free to drop that into the chat.
People all the way from Afghanistan. If I speak into the mic and everybody hears me, people who are online.
Maybe.
I see somebody has said the end goal always motivates me, and so I encourage you to reflect on what that end goal is and what does that look for you.
I think motivation is temporary and inspiration is some that stay constant.
What that's great reflection. What inspires you? Like what is that inspiration that sort of grounds you, especially in the face of doom and gloom? What is it that grounds you?
That's good. I like that. They're different ideas, but yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And other folks in the chat, you're more than welcome to drop that in. What's your motivation or even your inspiration for doing this work? Because we know there's so many different things that need to change.
People from Nigeria, Libya, Tunisia, Afghanistan. Can you take a screenshot of this? Okay. It'd be great to have.
Oh, we got a shout out for IYC in the chat. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know they're always trying to improve.
Was this mic even? It was on.
Oh, from Togo. My fiance lived in Togo for a couple years. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you can also drop where you're from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. How can future environmental leaders foster global cooperation on climate change and biodiversity conservation? Hi. Sorry, folks in the chat. We just have someone coming up. Just 1 minute.
What inspires you? What grounds you? Look for something different in your whole story or something that sort of grounds you. And then with your partner, you can share with your neighbor, and then your neighbor has
So is it something that encourages you to be sustainable?
It could be.
It could be something that makes you hopeful in the face of doom. It could be something that sort of
All right, folks. If you haven't done so already, please switch partners and share with the other person.
Okay, so just
Yeah, it could be in. Sorry. I see someone shared, Jane, your motivation is your family. That's also a big motivator for me. My grandpa inspired me to do this work, and I think about him all the time too. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks for saying that, Emmanuel. Yeah, we're always trying to think about ways to, bring the conversation out there too. So I'm glad that we're actually able to kind of talk back and forth between the chat here too. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to drop those in the chat too. And then, if I don't have the answer, I'm sure someone else in the chat might too. So also encourage you to drop any projects that you might be working on into the chat. It's always great that we support one another in this work. Plant more than a billion trees. Oh, we got 10 minutes. We'll just give it a few more minutes. Oh, I already did. I'm motivated to do this work because this make a person to become what they want to become. Food growth is very interesting and essential and more important to us. If every person is able to do something with their hands, will help country or government to carry on other important functions. I'm hoping to do this work through cocoa planting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know there's definitely a lot of challenges, but also opportunities to make change within the cocoa industry, whether it's the environmental impact of chocolate or some of the labor rights issues related to cocoa farming. So thank you so much for sharing that. Live from Pakistan. Can the link be shared? Yes, we are going to share the link to this session at the end of this presentation. You're talking about climate change. We still don't talk about the causes of climate change. Why within some years there is a sudden and abrupt change in the world climate. App technology. Sorry, I'm trying to read your message. It's going up in the chat. Has technology it's a weapon? Certainly, addressing the root causes of climate change is a lot of what we talk about. I didn't catch the back half of your message because they went by so fast. I'm a slow reader. So live from Liberia, thank you for joining. Not good plastic in space. Best regards from Jordan. Delegate, your efforts are appreciated. Thank you so much. Limited access to environmental programs, especially in rural or underfunded areas. Underfunded, that's something that has came up in conversation a lot, is how do we support financially some of these programs that are promoting positive change in our world? How can we do that? How can we connect with each other who, some folks who might have access to different networks or different resources? That's part of what we wanted to try to do here today. So I would definitely encourage folks to drop in their information in the chat if you're wanting to connect with other people here today. Delegate from UK, awesome, thank you for being here. For me, we did this work in order to protect our environment and fighting deforestation. Thank you, and thank you for doing your important work. There's a lot of different issues when it comes to climate, environmental change, and oftentimes they're connected to a lot of these other sustainable development goals up here too, and so we think about how these things are related. Okay, and I think I'm gonna ask everyone to take a minute, and I'm gonna thank you all for engaging on the chat. I'm glad that we were able to do this. Again, please feel free to keep using the chat too, and then go through and read some of these other messages so that that folks have shared too. So, all right, everyone, I'm gonna let's give it like a 1 minute warning just to wrap up your conversations, and then we're gonna share out with the larger group.
Is there an attendance form? Is there an attendance form?
Link
Link for attendance? Oh, wait,
Okay.
oh, okay. So the attendance link will come in later.
From this program, fact finding environments. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that means.
Could you reflect more on what actions you need to take to create an enabling environment?
All right, everyone, we're gonna start wrapping up here. We recognize that we don't have a ton of more time here, but I'd love to hear from maybe like two people, if we can be kind of short, just to provide space for a couple folks to share. Did anyone hear a story that was like really powerful? Did you hear a story that was really powerful? Yes. You did? And you did? Okay. Would the person who told the powerful story be willing to share with the group? And I don't want to put you on the spot, so you don't have to. I'm just, or anyone else who wants to share. Okay. Okay. So we got one here, and then we'll go right over here. Okay. Yeah. Please stand up.
Okay, so once again, I'm Fatih Bamba from Ghana. This is a heritage or a history. From where I come from, the history states that we migrated from the Ivory Coast, Mali, to Ghana, and we were directed by an animal called a crocodile. And those from Mali and the Ivory Coast, they call crocodile Bamba.
Gambia also.
Gambia also. They call it Bamba. So since then, until I grew up, in my hometown, we have the crocodile. And we have like over 200 crocodiles in the pond, and nobody kills it. Nobody eats it. And it protects the people in the community. It's a small village. We have over 500 or 1,000 population. When a car hits any of the crocodile by chance or accident, it comes to the road and it dies. We shred it with white calico. We buried it as a Muslim. And now it's become our totem. So I'm called Fatih. So we have the pond. We go around, they come outside, the crocodiles are big, they come outside, we can pass by it, and we have a way of affiliation. In Wangara, we call it Bamba de Bamba, Abejira, Atejimu. So it means Bamba is a Bamba in the river or in the water, that doesn't drink water. And it always protects us. When you get to the serene of the place, it's just like we're in the rainforest. It's just a small community in Ghana. It's called Manji. So this is a community I've been trying since I was a regional director for the National Youth Authority. I've been trying to bring a lot of media men to try to develop the place into a tourist site. And as a plan, I'm still going home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it with us.
That's good.
And let's carry the crocodile totem with us.
Would you like to share?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Zahra Ahmed. I'm 13 years old and I'm Nigeria, but I'm based in Dubai. And the picture that I'd like to share with you today is of me and my siblings.
Can I have a
This is Akia, and this is Abdurrahman Khalifa. So they are my motivation. They're like my source of happiness. Whenever I see a picture of them, or whenever I see them running around, it gives me a sense of hope. And they're really cute and they're really friendly. So my love, I would do anything to protect them, to keep them safe, and to make them happy. And that love for them has spread to children in general and the younger generations. And because of them, they are one of the sources, or they're one of the motivations for me to create a brighter future for us all. And when you want to create a brighter future, you start with society, because the society is what would actually make change in our world. So I try my best to be an advocate of kindness and goodness in the world, because that will definitely impact the society and it will make the world a better place.
Let's give it up for that one more time. I think we know who's going to be up here next time. Can we actually go back to the slides? I want to thank you all so much for sharing that. And I want to thank you all for sharing that with your neighbor as well. I also want to encourage you to ask other people in the future what their motivations are for doing this work, because a special thing happens when you hear about someone else's motivations for doing this work and when you share your motivations for doing this work. You may have not realized it, but you feel a little bit closer to that person, right? And there's power. There's so much power in that relationship. And so I want to thank you all for sharing that. And can we actually go, is there another slide? Yeah, we were going to talk about, the power of art and, science and how to, we're not going to do that because we had some great conversations. The next slide. So you can scan this QR code and it will have a link to the presentation. It will have a link to our contact info. And we've also created a name, an email, like a sign-up sheet if you want to share your contact information with one another. Please only add your contact information to that if you're comfortable with everyone in the group seeing it and sharing it. And we really did that for you, right? So we're not really going to be doing anything with that, but it's something for you all to connect with one another. And then we also have a link to the Changemaker training.
Well, how do we
And
get the
so-
QR code?
So you can come up here and scan it after.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And folks at home should be able to scan it as well.
And as we're doing that, as we're scanning this,
If you
I
want to get
also
something, $1.
No taxes, we are in New York. $1 plus taxes.
So as we're scanning the QR codes, I also want to emphasize what you took from the 2 stories you heard today. You heard that be kind and take that with you when you leave this room. You heard about more cultural totems, right? And so I want to end on this note that before capitalism, humans created song, art, sculptures, poetry, rituals, anywhere that they went. So for the sake of creating without any prize or career advancement or institutional prestige and acknowledgement, I encourage you to create, to spread kindness, to uplift, to speak in rooms where people need upliftment.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, everyone.
You really inspired us.
Yeah, good. And you can scan the QR code if you want. Or if anyone wants to talk, I'm happy to talk.
Yeah, I am.
I know how much.
Yeah, I'm
2 minutes.
No, I'm We can go outside.
Yeah, we were like right on. There you go.